You've probably spent years calling self-hatred accountability. It isn't. Today, you'll learn why beating yourself up can keep you from fixing what you broke and what a responsible man does instead. There are 6 boards lying across Caleb's garage floor, and every one of them is a half an inch too short. He measures the first one again, then the second, as if the tape might apologize and give the wood back. It does not. The boards cost him $64. The afternoon he set aside is gone. His jaw is tight, and the saw is still humming down. His son, Noah, is standing in the doorway holding a pencil behind one ear. Can I help with the next ones? Caleb does not turn around. I cannot think with you in here. Go do something else. Noah takes the pencil down. Okay. The door closes softly. That is the part Caleb remembers. The boards were a mistake. The sentence was a choice made inside the heat of it. Caleb knows that almost as soon as the room goes quiet, he pulls himself aside and calls himself an asshole. Then a bad father, then the kind of man who ruins the moments he says matters most. His stomach drops, his face burns, and he feels terrible. For the next hour, he works alone and says nothing to Noah. Part of him believes the silence is what he deserves. Part of him believes feeling this bad proves he understands what he did. But Noah cannot build safety out of Caleb's private punishment. He cannot hear the apology Caleb is having inside his own head. All he knows is that he wanted to stand beside his father. And his father made the room feel like a place he did not belong. So here's the question. If feeling terrible is accountability, why is nothing getting repaired? Welcome back to Man in Progress, Forging Manhood. I'm your host, Travis Murray, and this is the place for men willing to tell the truth about the gap between who they mean to be and what their patterns produce. You are not broken. You are not finished. You are a man in progress. When good intentions still leave damage. Caleb is a composite. Details have been changed, but the pattern is common. In the last episode, we talked about choices where two honest values compete. You can gather the facts, name the cost, choose your integrity, and still discover that later you missed something. You can also know exactly what your standard requires and fail to live it when pressure arrives. That does not make the standard worthless. It makes repair part of the standard. Most men know how to handle a material failure, right? You understand that if a pipe leaks, you find the break and fix it. If a measurement is wrong, you check the cut. If the truck won't start, you do not stand in the driveway screaming that the truck has no character. You inspect what happened, deal with the damage, and change the condition that produced it. But when the failure belongs to us, the process gets personal fast. We do not say, I lost my temper and spoke to him like he was the problem. We say, I am a terrible father. We do not say, I hid the number because I was afraid of the conversation. We say, I am a liar. This is who I am. We turn a behavior that needs to be faced into a verdict on the whole man. That verdict feels serious. It sounds like a man refusing to let himself off the hook. Sometimes it is the opposite. Sometimes condemning the whole man is easier than repairing the specific thing that he did. If the problem is that you are rotten all the way through, there is no clear next move. You can hate yourself, withdraw, make a different promise, or a dramatic one, or wait to see if the feeling will fade. But if the problem is that you raised your voice, hid the truth, broke the agreement, ignored the warning, or left somebody else carrying your part, then responsibility has an address. Now, there is something to name here, something to repair, something to change. Shame can keep the spotlight on you. There is a useful distinction in research on shame and guilt, but it needs to be handled with care. These emotions overlap. People experience them differently, and one study does not get to explain every man. Still, the pattern matters. Shame often sounds like, I am bad. Guilt is more likely to sound like, I did something bad. One attacks identity, and the other can keep attention on behavior and impact. That difference changes what happens next. A global identity attack can make a man want to hide, deny, blame, or disappear. A behavior-specific response can make repair easier to see because the problem has edges. Researchers have reviewed and worked suggesting that shame is often associated with defensiveness and escape, while guilt is more often tied to confession, apology, and corrective action. Those are tendencies, not laws. The point is not to become afraid of the word shame. The point is to notice where the emotion sends your attention. When Caleb calls himself a bad father, the whole room begins revolving around Caleb's identity. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he becoming his own father? Does he deserve to feel better? Those questions can consume an hour while the only other person who can answer the important question is sitting in another room. What did Noah experience? And what does Caleb owe him now? Self hatred can look humble because you are the one taking the beating, but it can still be self centered. You are the accused, the prosecutor, the judge, and the man waiting for a sentence. The person you hurt becomes a witness in a trial taking place entirely inside your head. That is why a dramatic I am the worst apology can put more weight on the person who was already hurt. Now they have to tell you that you are not the worst. They have to comfort you, soften the truth, or accept an apology before they are ready so you can stop collapsing in front of them. An apology should not make the wounded person carry your recovery. Why punishment feels like proof. Beating yourself up offers three things that honest repair does not. First, it offers intensity. The harder you punish yourself, the more it feels like the seriousness of your pain matches the seriousness of the damage. You may not have repaired anything, but you can tell yourself you did not get away clean. Second, it offers privacy. You can conduct you can conduct the entire punishment without making the call, naming the lie, returning the money, correcting the record, or sitting across from the person who gets to have a response you cannot control. Third, it offers a strange kind of innocence. If you suffer enough, you can begin to treat your suffering as payment. You did the wrong thing, but now you feel awful, so the account should be closer to even. It is not even. Your pain may be sincere. Remorse matters. A man who feels nothing after harming someone has a different problem. But remorse is information, not restitution. It tells you a line was crossed. It does not rebuild the line. This is where some men hear compassion and assume it means lowering the standard. They think the only two choices are brutal self punishment and judgment, or pretending the failure was no big deal. Research does not support that clean split. In 4 experiments, researchers found that a more self compassionate response to failure could increase motivation to improve. In one experiment, people reported greater motivation to make amends and avoid repeating the recent moral wrong. In another, people studied longer after an initial test failure. The studies do not prove that compassion fixes every failure, and self reported motivation is not the same as years of changed behavior. They do challenge the idea that cruelty is the price of growth. You do not need to hate the man to correct the man's behavior. In fact, you may need enough steadiness to look directly at what he did without flinching, minimizing, or turning away. Responsibility needs a direction. Accountability is not measured by how much pain you can take. It is measured by how much truth you can turn into responsible action. After a failure, start with 5 moves. They do not need a clever name. They need to be done. First, separate the fact from the verdict. Write what happened in language a camera could have recorded. I told my son to leave because I was angry about my mistake. I said the payment was sent when I knew it was not. I agreed to handle the appointment and did not put it on the calendar. Keep your motives out of the first sentence. Keep your identity out of it too. This is not soft language. It is accurate language. I am worthless is emotionally loud, but it gives you nothing to repair. A clean fact is harder because it leaves no fog around the choice. Second, state the behavior without leading with the excuse. There may be context. You were exhausted, the deadline moved, you were afraid, somebody else failed too. Context can help explain the system, and it may matter when responsibility is shared, but the first job is to stop using context as a shield. Listen to the difference. I am sorry I snapped, but the whole day had gone to hell. That sentence asks the pressure to share the blame before you have owned your voice. A cleaner sentence is, I snapped at you. The day was hard and my voice was still my responsibility. You can explain later if explanation serves understanding. Ownership goes first. Third, name the impact without telling the other person what they are allowed to feel. You may know part of the impact. Your silence left your wife alone in a decision. Your missed handoff made a coworker carry the shift. Your anger made your child wonder whether being near you was the problem. Say what you see, then leave room for what you missed. Try something like, I can see that my choice cost you time and made my word harder to trust. What am I not seeing? Do not argue with the answer. Do not cross examine the tone. Impact is not always equal to intention, but the other person lived with the impact, not the speech you meant to give. Fourth, repair what can be repaired. Return what you took, correct what you said, pay the fee, redo the work, make the appointment. Give the person the information they should have had before you made the choice for them. An apology without a repairable act is sometimes all that remains, but do not stop at words when action is available. Research on self forgiveness has found that accepting responsibility and making amends matters. That does not mean the other person must forgive you. It means your path forward cannot depend on pretending the damage disappeared because you finally admitted it. Repair is not a trade where you deliver the correct words and receive your old standing back. The other person may need time. They may set a boundary. They may decide the relationship does not return to what it was. Accountability includes respecting consequences you would rather negotiate away. Fifth, change one condition that made repetition easier. This is where regret becomes instruction. If you miss the obligation because everything lives in your head, build a calendar check. If you lie when money gets tight, stop holding the numbers alone and schedule the review before panic arrives. If anger takes your voice before your values can reach it, create a rule that ends the interaction before the next sentence. Do not promise, I will never do it again. Name the guardrail another person could observe. If I feel my voice rising, I will say I need 10 minutes and give an exact return time. Every bill over $200 goes into the shared account the day it arrives. Before I commit our weekend, I check the calendar and ask the person whose time I am spending. A system does not remove character from the equation, it gives character somewhere to operate. The body uses systems because good intentions cannot regulate blood, breath, temperature, and movement one heroic decision at a time. Your values need a system for the same reason. Pressure should not be the first moment your code tries to invent a procedure. The failure showed you where procedure was missing. There's another test that keeps repair honest. Ask yourself, if this person never gives me the response I want, would I still do the repair? Would you still correct the story if nobody praised your honesty? Would you still return the money if the relationship was already over? Would you still install the guardrail if the person you hurt decided they did not want to watch you improve? If the answer is yes, you are moving toward responsibility. If the whole effort depends on receiving quick forgiveness, restored access, or reassurance that you are still a good man, you may be trying to buy relief. That does not make the desire for forgiveness wrong. Or, of course, you want the relationship back. Of course, you want the other person to believe you. But their response is not the part of the system you control. Your part is truth, repair, and practice. At work, that may mean correcting the number before somebody discovers it and taking the consequence that follows. At home, it may mean changing the schedule instead of making the fourth apology for the same forgotten responsibility. In your private life, it may mean admitting that the standard was unrealistic, writing an honest floor, and starting again without the dramatic speech. This is what self control looks like after failure. It is not controlling the other person's reaction. It is controlling whether your fear writes the apology, whether your ego edits the facts, and whether your discomfort gets to cancel the change. A man does not prove his strength by never needing repair. He proves it by staying present with repair when repair cannot guarantee the ending he wants. Caleb puts the tool down. Caleb finds Noah in his room building something out of the scrap wood he was allowed to keep. Caleb wants to explain the measurement, the money, the lost afternoon, and how frustrated he was with himself. Every part of the explanation is true. None of it belongs first. He sits on the floor and says, I told you to leave because I was angry about my mistake. You did not cause it. I made the garage feel like you were in the way, and that was wrong. I am sorry. Noah keeps looking at the piece in his hands. I was only trying to help. I know, Caleb says. You should have been able to ask without me taking my anger out on you. Caleb does not ask, Are we good? He does not tell Noah that he is a terrible dad. He does not reach for forgiveness before Noah has finished having the experience. Then he names the guardrail. From now on, if I get angry enough that it reaches my voice, the tools go down. I'm taking a few minutes before I talk to anybody, and that is my rule, not your job. He asks if Noah wants to come back out and help him mark the replacement boards. Noah says, maybe tomorrow. That answer matters. Repair did not purchase immediate closeness. Caleb opened the door he had closed. Noah still gets to decide when he walks through it. The next afternoon, Noah comes into the garage. Caleb gives him the tape. They mark the first board together. And that moment is not proof that everything is fixed. It is the first piece of evidence that Caleb's apology has a body. The real test comes 3 weeks later when a drill bit breaks and Caleb feels the heat rise in his throat. He sets the drill down. He tells Noah, I need a few minutes. I'll be back at 4 o'clock. Then he comes back at 4. That is where repair begins to become trust. Repair does not erase consequence. Some failures cannot be repaired neatly. Money can be returned, but fear may remain. A correction can be published, but the first lie may have traveled farther. An apology can be sincere, and the relationship may still end. Do not use the impossibility of perfect repair as an excuse for no repair. Do what is yours. Tell the truth. Restore what you can. Accept the boundary. Change the system. If the situation involves abuse, coercion, threats, addiction, serious mental health concerns, or somebody's safety, a 5-step personal audit is not enough. Get qualified help and protect safety first. A podcast cannot carry work that needs clinical, legal, medical, or crisis support. For the ordinary failures most of us keep dragging behind us, the question is simpler and harder. Are you willing to stop using punishment as proof and begin making repairs visible? Here's your call to the forge. Choose one unresolved failure from the last 7 days. Not the worst thing you've ever done. Choose one live situation where a responsible next step is still available. Before you go to sleep, write 5 sentences. What happened was, then write it down. My responsibility was, write that down. The impact I can see is, and then write that down. The repair available now is, write that down. And the last one, the guardrail I will install is, and write it down. Then complete the first honest repair step. Send the correction, make the call, replace what you damaged, ask for the conversation. If another person is involved, do not arrive demanding forgiveness. Arrive ready to hear what your action cost. Your forge question this week is, what are you still punishing yourself for because punishment feels safer than repair? A man in progress is not a man who never fails. He is a man who refuses to make failure useless. He does not hide the evidence, turn pain into payment, or ask shame to do the work of character. He faces the facts, he owns the impacts, he repairs what he can, then he changes the way he lives so the apology does not have to stand alone. In the next episode, we take the next step. Repair can begin in one conversation, but reliability is built when the changed behavior survives Tuesday, Wednesday, pressure, boredom, and time. We are going to talk about how to become a man people can count on without making promises your life cannot carry. If this episode gave language to a failure you have been carrying in circles, follow or subscribe to Man in Progress, Forging Manhood. Send this video to one man who has been punishing himself in private while the next honest action waits in public. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are a man in progress. Keep forging, and we'll keep forging together.